O'Hare Airport in 1973 was a wonderland to a 10-year-old with its sweeping arched ceilings and people blurrily buzzing about, accompanied by the cacophony of like 1,001 simultaneously spoken languages. My dad, mom, and I were there with my Aunt Sue, and I'm sure with many other relatives from the big Catholic side of my family, dropping my Uncle John off for his year-long motorcycle trek across Europe and India. Flying was still relatively new for the middle class, and it was my first time in an airport, so we were all a bit dazzled. A bit about Uncle John. Uncle John was a singularly spectacular individual. He devoted his life to teaching earth science, and while he thought religion was a con and God a hoax, he was one of nature's greatest evangelists. I always saw God in nature. He saw evolution. I asked, what's the difference? In the public school system, my uncle trained thousands of minds to think critically. He nurtured acres of natural Illinois prairie back to life. He took my brothers, my cousins, and me on countless rock hounding expeditions across the United States, stoking my early and continued interests in paleontology, chemistry, genetics, astronomy, physics, evolution, science in general. But before all that, Uncle John was a free-spirited hippie who decided to travel across Europe on a motorcycle, and our big Catholic side of the family was there to see him off. Well, I'm sure nobody other than I was surprised when, as we were walking to the flight gate, and I started talking to the nice bald men all agleam in their saffron robes, that Uncle John, in one swift, smooth motion, picked me up by the scruff of my shirt, tucked me under his arm like a football, while alarmingly shouting, "Nope!" as he carried me the rest of the way to the gate. I remember, in my humiliation, wondering, what's the harm in talking to strangers? In hindsight, I suppose it was naive for a 10-year-old to talk to a bunch of men in golden robes at a place like an international airport, but it's not like they were asking me into the van for some candy. And frankly, even though I'm now more alert to the dangers lurking in the shadows, I am still easily stopped by all sorts of people, and invariably, I enjoy our chats very much. I like talking to strangers, and I think it's a workable way to mend wounds by acknowledging each other as merely decent human beings. I think about my youthful interactions with the Krishnas a lot, especially living in New York, because they like to hang out at Union Square, making relatively decent, if somewhat tedious music. But I enjoy listening to them, and whenever they take a break, which is a little bit too rare, we occasionally share reflections about God, the universe, and everything. Also, their chanting drowns out the evangelicals screaming on the corner. Lesser of two evils and all that, I suppose. Human stories are interesting and unique, each a revelation of God's journey in our material world. We all have something to learn from everyone else, but we have to be able to hear what other people have to say. Our personal and communal histories are amazing, mind and soul opening stories about a God who exists to experience what we experience, and, many of us hope, to push us ever toward acts of loving kindness and a peace-filled, cooperative world. Your life is God having a human experience. And so it is for your neighbor, and their families, and your families, and everyone around the world in all cultures, religions, and socio-political economies. Why are we so afraid of each other when we're all so fascinating? Listening to the stories of each other's lives opens our hearts and minds to the realization that the creative, conscious universe is manifest in all of us and everything that surrounds us. We're not strangers, we're family. But it takes wisdom to awaken us to that new way of thinking and to eliminate our fear of talking and listening to each other. In Proverbs chapter 8, verses 1 through 11, the author writes, "Doesn't wisdom cry out an understanding shout? Atop the heights along the path, at the crossroads she takes her stand. By the gate before the city, at the entrances she shouts. I cry out to you, people. My voice goes out to all of humanity. Understand skill, you who are naive. Take this to heart, you fools. Listen, for I speak things that are correct. From my lips come what is right. My mouth utters the truth. My lips despise wickedness. All the words of my mouth are righteous. Nothing in them is twisted or crooked. All of them are straightforward to those who understand and upright for the knowledgeable. Take my instruction rather than silver, knowledge rather than choice gold. Wisdom is better than pearls. Nothing is more delightful than she. The Jewish people of the First Testament called the unifying thread of diversity wisdom with a capital W and personified it as the divine feminine through which God births and sustains our reality. It's through wisdom that we find the skills necessary to transform naivete into hope. It's when we understand that every person is created through God's wisdom that we realize nobody is a stranger. We are spiritually and materially related. Notice that wisdom shouts understanding at the city gate entrance. That was the central hub of the ancient world. People from all over the ancient Near East were at this gate, speaking many languages and interacting with people from a mind-boggling variety of traditions, whose customs shaped expectations and often led to confusing exchanges. One person's hearty palm up hello is another's insult to his mother. To avoid the problems cultural misunderstanding might cause, wisdom encourages us to learn about each other. But we can't do that if we're afraid not only to talk to strangers, but perhaps more importantly, to listen to them. Uncle John returned from his journey emaciated and exhausted, but filled with enthralling tales about all the kind strangers he'd met, stories that I heard my entire life. There was always a new one. He understood and was one of the first people to teach me about the inherent beauty of being human. A concept perhaps impossible to truly comprehend unless we're willing to talk to strangers. Amen. Our discussion question today is, what have you discovered in conversations with strangers? I know everybody has talked to a stranger now and then. What have you discovered in your conversations with them? I'll divide you into breakout rooms for just a few moments, for about 10 minutes or so, for you to discuss in smaller groups, and then we'll get back together and share what we have discovered together. And I think this will work out. If you'll accept the invitations on your screen, I'll see you back here in about 10 minutes, folks. Thank you.